Hello, welcome to Tuesday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Coe. I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, how are you?
I'm not bad, Daniel. Better than you, by the sounds of it. You've finally the Fu Manchu's caught up with you.
I've contracted it. It's been. I thought I could duck and dodge it, but no, I've definitely got a bit of the flu. It's brutal, horrible.
It is brutal, mate. You have my sympathies sincerely.
But listen, one group that we just couldn't let down, Keith. The Hotline viewers. You didn't miss it last week. I'm not going to miss it this week. So here we are.
Well, you have got previous for scampering away to the toilet halfway through, Dan, so let's not count our chickens just yet.
Listen, that was before the show, I'll have you know. Bye. I take it on board. Today, Keith, you were through at Lennox Town, and I deliberately didn't ask you before the show how Wilfried Nancy was, just because I wanted to hear it firsthand here. So, how did the Celtic manager come across today?
Wow. Right, what's my takeaway from that? First and foremost, fundamentally, what a really nice fella. What a really nice big guy. He didn't swerve anything. He completely accepts that 3 defeats is, almost catastrophic start to his career at Celtic. But he does have this sort of deep-rooted belief that it's going to come good. Look, my big takeaway is, I'm going to go back to, I just thought he was just a really decent, nice fella. That doesn't mean that he's not walked into the wrong movie here, Dan. Mm-hmm. And the early evidence suggests that might very well be the case. But, he talked about it. He said he didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I think basically I don't think that was meant as an aggressive statement, i.e. everybody can just shut up. I think it was more about he's got to prove himself to himself. He's got to believe in himself. He's got to believe in what he's trying to do. As I said to you, there was no aggression. I mean, he's been battered from pillar to post, really, hasn't he? Yeah. Over the last 8 days or so. But he's not coming out swinging. He's not saying it's unfair. He's actually saying it's exactly what I expected. I knew I was coming to a big club. I also knew, by the way, that I was coming to a big club in a critical moment in the season when there were 3 massive games on the horizon. But that didn't scare him. Clearly, it's not gone the way that he'd hoped it would. And it just sort of rolls over. At one point, there was a broadcast session with Wilfried Nancy, and then the 2 or 3 of the Daily Boys, we got to sit down with them and ask them some stuff, and that will come out later, and it's pretty good. There's a lot of honesty in there in terms of, totally accepting that it's not been good enough. But then there was some moments, I asked him, I said, Wilfried, look, I'm going to be honest with you. You've mentioned that you were quite happy with some of the things that you've seen in all 3 of your matches so far. But obviously there were other parts of these games where it's really not looked good at all. I said, and all 3 games, Wilfried, if I'm being honest, there were moments when it looks as if the players just didn't understand what it was that you were asking them to do. They don't look as if they understand or have a real grasp on the instructions that are coming from the sidelines. Mm-hmm. He kind of admitted that was the case as well, Daniel. So, look, there's 2 ways to look at this: half glass empty, half glass full. Wilfried's glass is certainly half full. I'm not sure that the supporters all feel the same way. I'm not entirely sure how the players are feeling about it. It doesn't look great optically from any angle right now. But in terms of the guy himself, actually, I don't think he would want anybody to feel sorry for him. I didn't really feel sorry for him. But I walked away from it going, he's a fundamentally really good fella, and you always hope that good things happen to good people. But I do wonder with Wilfried, and I do wonder about Tannadice and what's lying in wait for Celtic up there, because as we've spoken about since the weekend, Jim Goodwin was at Hampden to watch the St Mirren game, and he'll have his own formula in mind for what he wants to do about this system. And again, he's quite defensive about the system. He keeps saying it's not really the system. We're not defending with 5 or defending with 4, but it doesn't change the fact, it doesn't alter what you're seeing with your own eyes, which is that Celtic are wide open. They're swinging like a barn door at the back, and have been in all 3 games. They've lost heavily in terms of goals against. And it will need to be a very different version of Celtic and Wilfried Nancy's vision for the team if they're to get in and out of Tannadice unscathed tomorrow night, I think. It already looks as if it's going to be another sort of difficult 90 minutes, testing, challenging 90 minutes for them.
Well, you say it's obviously Tannadice tomorrow night for Nancy and Celtic, but you can look at Celtic's fixtures now. I mean, over the coming... what's that, 2 weeks? Dundee United away, even Aberdeen at home. Aberdeen are now, I think, unbeaten in 7 league games. Livy away is always hard. Motherwell away. I mean, what a season Motherwell are having. And then, of course, Rangers at home. Did Nancy give any clue today that perhaps he will change his tactics whatsoever? No.
And from just what he was said and the way it was delivered, I'd be astonished if he does. This is what I'm saying. He's kind of compartmentalising it by saying, look, it's nothing to do with the system. You and I and everybody else can look at it and say, well, it's everything to do with the system.
No.
But not in his head. It's not. And what he's asking the players to do isn't all that different in his head, even if it is in theirs, and even if they look confused by it. So no, I don't see him taking a backward step with that one, Daniel. I think it will be the same again. He'll just ask his players to do it better. And we've heard that script before, and we know how it usually works out, but who knows?
Do you know what I don't get about it, Keith, right, is that, see when, for instance, there's been comparisons with Ange Postecoglou and his sticky start as Celtic manager, lost 3 of his first 6. But when he came in, you could see what he was trying to do. You could see with that 4-3-3, the high-octane, high-press, all-out attack. But see this with Wilfried Nancy, when you see, glimmers of what he was trying to do, I mean, Liam Scales is a left forward, and Maeda was sort of at one point centre mid, and Ralston does. I just don't quite see it at all. Like, if it's all going well, what is Liam Scales going to be doing, flying, overlapping Maeda? I just don't get it.
Do you want him there? Do you want him there? That's what I keep coming back to. I remember when we were watching the kind of first version of Russell Martin's Rangers, and Max Aarons was playing left back, and he was basically pushing Raskin out of the centre of the pitch. Raskin was coming out wide. So when I'm looking at it, these things, you're looking and saying, well, what's the purpose? What's the point? Why would you take your best central midfield operator out of the centre of the midfield and have him on the left-hand side, so that a fullback whose distribution is nowhere near up to that standard or required level, why would you have him try to dictate play for the middle of the pitch? I look at what I think was the period of the match against St Mirren that Wilfried Nancy quite liked, which was probably the kind of first half, last 20 minutes or so of the first half. And that's exactly right. It is Liam Scales, your central sort of left-sided centre half, getting on the outside, overlapping and underlapping Kieran Tierney on the left-hand side. And my view on that is, do I want Liam Scales there? Probably not.
No.
Do I want Engels maybe to be in an area like that, or Maeda, or but I'm not sure I want my centre half being the guy that's charged with doing your creative work down the flanks. So that's a concern when you look at the system, and let's be honest, we're not sure what it is that Wilfried Nancy has seen that he actually did like. But if it was that, and that was the period in the game where Celtic were territorially a lot better, a lot more advanced in getting balls into the St Mirren box. So I'm guessing that's the period of the match that he liked. But my view is, well, I don't want my centre half there. I want one of my more skillful, productive, creative players to get on the ball in these parts of the pitch. Look, he's certainly got his own ideas. Now, where I'm struggling a little bit is that he's saying his ideas aren't that big of a change, and this isn't all that big of a demand, and it's not really 3 at the back. It could be 5 at the back. It could be 4 at the back. So a lot of stuff that sounds as if it came from the coaching manual, and sometimes I think that sounds a bit like gobbledygook. I go with the eye test, Dan,
We can all see it.
and what I'm seeing so far, I don't think there's been much to like about it. And if that was the period of the game that he was happy with, then again, that would give me more questions and answers, because I want my most skillful, creative, talented players in those areas of the pitch, because they're the ones that are likely to do the most damage. If anything, if Liam Scales wants to get himself into the box and get in the end or something, then yep, I'm not opposed to that. But I'm just struggling with what it is, what this vision is.
Yeah, me too.
And that is an issue. I'm as much as I really like the guy today, I'm not going to pretend that I can't unsee what we've seen, Dan.
Yeah.
And what we've seen hasn't been particularly pretty.
In the comments, and we've got plenty of comments coming in on this, and if you want to get in touch on this, on anything else that takes your fancy, please do so in the comment section. Marzuno says, Keith, with 2 lads away at AFCON, Liam Scales is our only left winger. Marzuno's been on fire the last couple of nights, I have to say. Ewan says, the game they play in MLS is another galaxy compared to our game. He's doomed, I tell you. Chris Fraser simply says, please leave our club. AGSC Tech says, Nancy lacks a bit of humility there with nothing to prove stuff. So many underestimate Scottish football, it's complicated. Green Machine insists he can still be in a movie with a good ending. Timmy insists that Wilfried Nancy is going to make people eat their words. Paul says, I don't blame Nancy, it's all on the board. As far as I'm concerned, they have assets stripped the team and they have brought him into a complete mess.
He's certainly been given a bum hand, hasn't he? That was one of the questions, which I can't really tell you what the answer was, but at one point today, I did ask Wilfried Nancy. I said, look, the previous manager has been raising an alarm for months now, Brendan Rodgers, that this squad isn't equipped, that this squad lacks talent, and it lacks talent in a number of areas, and it needed to be addressed. I said, I know you've only been in for a couple of weeks, but is your assessment similar to that of Brendan Rodgers? And if so, do you plan on doing something urgent about it in January? As I said to you, I can't go into some barload and all this, but it's interesting. I felt his answer was interesting. Put it this way, if I was a Celtic fan and I heard or when I read the quotes from Wilfried Nancy about that, it would lead me to determine that he doesn't think he's going anywhere fast. And, all this call, the calls for his head and get him out now, I think he's already planning for January, Dan. Now, he would be, wouldn't he? But I don't know. I guess that he's had a little bit of comfort somewhere, and that he knows he is going to get the chance to address some of the flaws that are in this squad in January. And again, that's going to be an interesting one, because if he buys players to fit his system,
how many names you need? To fit his system, how many players would you need? I mean,
this is the thing. You're probably looking at 4 or 5 players in that team at the weekend who were not playing their natural position. So there's 4 or 5 right away. If you're having to put jams, square pegs into round holes, you would think that those would be at the top of Nancy's agenda in terms of recruitment. But we've said it for long and weary now. Selling Kyogo, not replacing him, selling Ida, not replacing. So light up front. Iheanacho looks as if he's going to be out for a while. Wilfried Nancy wasn't able to put a time scale on that one today, but confirmed it's the hamstring and it's not looking particularly clever. He certainly will not be at Tannadice tomorrow night. So striking options are really light. Guys in wide areas, the ones that they've got aren't good enough. And then, I don't know what it is that he's got in his mind's eye for what he wants at wing back. For example, it would worry me if I was Alistair Johnson, who I think is such a huge player for Celtic.
Brilliant player.
But is he a wing back in Nancy's team? I don't know that he is.
Who knows? I have no idea.
Does he want to play? Does he want to play Alistair Johnson right out of a 3? I don't know about that either. So there are a lot of things that are still very unclear about this, and will only become a little bit more obvious over the course of time. But I'm just not sure how much time is going to be afforded to anyone right now, because he's walked into this season at a moment in time where Martin O'Neill had just rescued it, picked it up off the floor and put it back together again, and in the space of 8 days it's gone bang and it's in splinters again.
No.
And it could quickly get worse, given, as you said, some of the fixtures that Celtic will have to get through over the next few weeks.
Just to finish with the comments in Celtic, Scott says, any new manager with new ideas needs his own players. Our pal Gianni says, forget Nancy, I wouldn't trust the board with signings in January based on the previous windows. And to finish
that is an issue as well. I mean, Celtic has issues everywhere you look right now. I mean, for Kevin Thelwell, read Paul Tisdale.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. You've got a guy there that isn't really taking accountability for very much, in terms of he seems to be dodging a lot of the blame for decision making that clearly seems to be his responsibility. And does any Celtic fan look forward to any transfer window right now with any sort of confidence or belief that the guys in there making the decisions in charge of recruitment are fit for purpose and going to improve what's already there? I'm not sure that they do right now. I think confidence has been lost all across the board. I don't mean the board literally, but yes, even the board as well.
And just, sorry, very finally, I was going to finish with this. Craigie says, if Nancy does not win 4 of the next 5 games, he'll be in the Glasgow Bowl shorter than Martin was. And AJSC Tech says, Nancy has 5 games. That's just maths now. I mean, would you go along with that, Keith, that even though he's only been in the door 13 days, we're already looking at how many games before he could be gone?
Do you know what? It's such an unprecedented set of circumstances, this, isn't it? This whole season, that is really difficult to second guess. I mean, there's an element, if the Celtic board cave in, then what are they admitting? They're admitting that they've made an enormous mistake. In fact, a series of them. The treatment of Brendan Rodgers, the failure to recruit properly when Brendan Rodgers was still there, the evisceration of Brendan Rodgers. Yes, bringing in Martin O'Neill, that worked well, but then they get rid of him at a time when most of the fans were actually making an argument for, let's just keep him for a while.
Yeah.
So it's almost like every single possible decision that they were responsible for, they've botched somewhere along the line. So do they put their hands up now and say, this is another one, mea culpa, we've got the wrong guy? Well, pull the trigger on him, have to then find another one. Do they bring back Martin O'Neill? How ridiculous does it start to make them look if they do that? So I think and given the starting position with the Celtic fans isn't strong, Daniel, it's far from strong, it's the opposite of strong. Do they want to be seen to be putting their hands up and admitting that this is just another big decision that they've got horrendously wrong? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. For that reason, I'm inclined to believe that they'll stick to their guns a little bit with Wilfried Nancy. They'll give him January. They'll, let him sort of buy himself a few toys in the Christmas market and see if it makes them any better, and then just keep their fingers crossed and their toes and every other thing. I just think if they move quickly on this, they'll be seen to be acting in blind panic. That'll be the accusation. So I think it's unlikely that they'll do that. Even if the next 4 or 5 games don't go well, I still think it's more than likely that they'll stand by their man through January.
Mickey in the comments says, if the board acts soon and sack Nancy, then in my view it will redeem their reputation with me, but they won't do it. Jambo Stu agrees they won't sack Nancy as the board will effectively need to sack themselves for hiring him. And Paul Brady says the board are all about self-preservation. They have to back Nancy in January or they will get the fallout. Chris Fraser says lose tomorrow night and he has to go. We could talk about this.
People have been saying that since day one.
Aye.
I know that was only 8 days ago,
I know.
but it has been lose against Hearts. This guy's got to go. This guy, he's going to blow the league title. Lose against Roma, I'm not. I think that's probably a bit of a free pass. The Roma game. It should.
Anyone could have lost to Roma. Any Celtic manager could have.
Exactly, but it was the manner of the defeat.
Aye, of course, aye.
Which was, continued the alarm bells. And then going into a cup final against the Mun, there was just no option for Celtic other than to win that game. And look how that turned out. So yeah, it does feel as if he's kind of lurching from one potential crisis to the next. And he used a very good phrase actually in the interview that he did with us about a part of his anatomy that feels as if it's on fire right now. Just because it's been such a chaotic and sort of catastrophic early run of results and performances for him.
Well, I mean, look, it's the only game on in the Premiership tomorrow night, and we're going to talk a little bit about Rangers' victory over Hibs last night in a moment, and I also want to talk about a previous Celtic manager. But before we do that, I'll put my neck in the line, Keith, and say I don't think Celtic will win tomorrow. I think they might get a score draw, but how do you see it going at Tannadice?
Dan, what I have learned in our time together on Hotline Live is to ignore your predictions at all costs.
That's true.
You are the worst. You had.
I can't deny it.
If I think back to last week, you were saying that you felt that Wilfried Nancy was about to get a statement win against Roma, and that was going to be the springboard for the season. Now you're wanting the guy hung, drawn and quartered.
I think the phrase he used was
London Road.
I think the phrase he used was launchpad.
Launchpad, yeah. I know, it turned out more like a torpedo.
I was the only rocket. But how do you think they'll get on? Do you think they will finally get the win that he craves tomorrow night?
Listen, my predictions ain't much better, are they? I tipped Hibs to get a point at Ibrox last night, which they probably should have been able to do. But yet again, this mental block that they've got seemed to kick in whenever they come up against the blue shirts.
Aye.
I thought Rangers were again quite fortunate to get away. But you know something? That'll do for Rangers right now. That'll do for Danny Rowe. As long as he can keep the points coming in. I think he's got a 75% win rate just now from, I think, 8 games in charge. Yep. I think that's right. And I think Russell Martin's win rate from 8 games was something like 12.5% or something like that. If that. So that'll do. That keeps Rangers rolling. It keeps them moving in the right direction, even though they're not looking impressive at all. And we'll speak tactically about one or two things that went on there as well, I'm sure. So I tipped Hibs for a point, and I kind of feel as if I'm getting splinters here, but I do feel Celtic could drop a couple of points. I do feel that Tannadice has got a draw written all over it as well.
No, I completely agree. And before we come on to Rangers, Keith, I wanted to give a little mention to Brendan Rodgers, because he's been out in Saudi Arabia being announced as the new boss of Al Qasadi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he was with a familiar face today, the one and only James Bisgrove.
Yeah.
I think is the CEO out there. He was the man at the centre of Rangers' stadium debacle last season. For anyone that can't quite remember. But Rodgers out in Saudi Arabia. How could you forget? It's not much of a surprise to see him in Saudi, is it? I mean, we kind of heard whisperings. You can see there John Kennedy with him as well in the background.
Yeah.
His press conference, Keith, is tomorrow, where he's sort of formally introduced.
Unfortunately, I don't think the Scottish press are going to be able to make it over there in time.
Well, our pal Gianni in the comments, I've lost it now, but earlier on said, I believe Mick Gannon's on his way over. And Mick's probably sitting and watching thinking, if only. But do you anticipate Rodgers saying much about Celtic departure?
I think he'll address it. He'll need to address it in some way, shape or form. Are you going to get chapter and verse from him on his version of the events? I doubt it. I think that I've been very surprised that Brendan Rodgers has kept such a low profile. It makes you wonder because Brendan never shy of talking, not about himself, and his reputation was absolutely lacerated by Dermot Desmond. So you wonder, is there non-disclosures? Is there some sort of legal thing hanging over this, which might mean, I mean, even at the very basics, and especially managers in England, they usually go through the Managers Association down south, don't they? Yeah. And they'll put a statement out, which the lawyers go through, and it's all ticked off, and so that it's not actionable in any way, shape, or form. But that's almost always the way that they do it down there. I thought at the very least Brendan Rodgers would do that. Obviously, I contacted him. I would have been more than happy to sit down and put his version out there, because I think the Celtic fans would want to hear it for themselves.
Oh, definitely.
And I'm not sure that we'll get that at a press conference in Saudi Arabia, where, I'm not too sure how fanatical the Saudis are about the situation at Celtic, and I'm not sure that they're doing sack the board protests over there. So,
no, but I just thought you summed it up there, Keith. I thought the way that he was torpedoed and eviscerated by Dermot Desmond. I get managers leave clubs all the time. It's part and parcel of the gig. But I just thought that was kind of personal, and maybe he'd want
kind of personal.
Well, it was very personal, and he'd want to have some sort of retort. He doesn't break an NDA, but
it was astonishingly bad. No, it was outrageous to treat a manager who's had so much success with Celtic. Whether you like Brendan Rodgers, don't like Brendan Rodgers, nobody can dismiss the success that he brought to Celtic in terms of trophies and silverware.
He's a Celtic legend.
For him to be treated like that going out the door was a scandal, an outrageous act. And yeah, very much you would think that Brendan Rodgers would have been really bruised by it and very keen to level it out a little bit by giving his side. The fact that he hasn't, and that he's kept his own counsel during that time, that sort of tells me something. It tells me that perhaps legally he's feeling not very inclined to have his say for whatever reason right now.
Yeah. Paul in the comments says maybe he's saving it for his autobiography. Maybe he is. We mentioned Rangers, Keith. Earlier on today, there was the Record Rangers podcast took place with Record Sports, Andy Newport and Fraser Wilson. They were at the game last night. Shall we hear their take on events at Ibrox?
Yes, let's do that.
Why not? Let's have a listen.
You were at Ibrox last night. Another, on the face of it, a right good result. A good victory. Moves Rangers up. They're into third. Things ticking along quite nicely for Danny Rowell. I mean, you were there. What did he make of the performance? Because I saw it on TV, looked a bit unconvincing at times, I would say, but it's exactly what they were needing after Budapest.
Listen, it's the type of win that they certainly wouldn't have got, 3-4 months ago under Russell Martin. A gritty, win at all costs sort of performance. All substance, not much style. But in terms of, as a spectacle, I was tend to judge the reaction of the crowd and the couple of boys that sit behind me in the gantry, the main stand, and let's just say he might be well doing taking a wee visit to the doctors tomorrow, get his blood pressure taken, because yeah, I'm sure you've heard the chap I'm referring to.
Oh yes, I know the guy.
It was boiling over more than once. I mean, it was. I thought Rangers were really poor actually on the night. I thought, in terms of possession, so sloppy, so lacking in forward thrust, and without Mikey Moore, I really thought they would have struggled with just in terms of having MD showed any willingness to sort of run at Hibs, to get at Hibs. What I will say in the defence of the players, it was a really young starting 11 that Daniel put out. I think I worked it out of the actual outfielders. So taking Jack Butland, obviously 30 something, taking him out of the equation. It was an average age for, I think it was 22.2 years old. So that just shows you how young it was. And there weren't many leaders in that group, guys who you naturally, I thought, right, they're more senior figures. You're looking at maybe Conor Barron, Mohamed Diamande, Max Allen's obviously Premier League experience, but I don't think you would say any of these guys are the natural big characters in this squad. And I felt it was a performance that was crying out for somebody just to come in and steady the team down and show a bit of leadership. That's why I was so impressed with Mikey Moore. I think we'll come on to him in a wee minute, but 18 years of age, The youngest player on the team, I thought he was sensational. Okay, a lot of the stuff maybe didn't come to anything, but that's because I think a lot of the guys round about him weren't taking the responsibility that he was prepared to take. And I just thought, for a kid at 18, for him to go in and demand the ball every single time and to be the only one that was really willing to run at Hibs, I just thought it was so impressive. But in terms of the rest, listen, the fact is that Danny Rose, I think that's 8 games unbeaten now, 6 wins, 2 draws. It's getting them back into a title race somehow. I've just written a piece for the website saying, it seemed remarkable. It would have seemed laughable, even, as I say, when, Russell Martin was getting chased out of the Falkirk Stadium by enraged punters to suggest that Rangers would find themselves in a title race. But, here we are a few weeks down the line, and if they can get themselves a result at Tynecastle this Sunday coming, you've got to say they're bang in one. That would cut the gap to Hearts to 6 points. They'd have a game in hand. With the January reinforcements to come, then I think you would have to say that Rangers were in the title race, but that's a big if, as Danny Rowe pointed out himself last night when I asked him about it. They have to keep taking it one game at a time, obviously, but Sunday's shaping up to be a huge match at Tynecastle.
In the comments, Keith, Rangers is he okay? Says, evening, really dogged win for us last night. That was a banana skin and would have been typical for us to drop points after Celtic's result. Roll deserves big credit. The players are fighting for him. And Craigie simply says, Gers can play crap and run 1-0. Who cares as long as they get 3 points? What Andy said there, Keith, if Rangers end up in a sort of title race in the new year, it'd be one of the most improbable title races ever. But they are only 3 points behind Celtic now.
Yeah, I keep saying it. I just don't see Rangers as genuine contenders this season. I'll be astonished if they go to Hearts and win that game. Astonished. They're poor. They're a poor side, and I know Danny Rowe's getting results, and good on him, because that's first and foremost. Ask Wilfried Nancy right now. I think he would take results over performances, just to stabilise the thing, and that's what Danny Rowe, his first objective would have been going into Rangers, was stabilise it. He's stabilised it in terms of domestic results in the league. There's no doubt about that. But they're a bad watch. They're a really difficult watch. And even last night, Daniel, I have to tell you, I'm struggling. Remember what we were talking about with Nancy and what's the reason for the thinking? What's the kind of motivation behind decisions? Mm-hmm. So he's gone with 3 at the back last night, even though he knows that by doing that, he's playing, whether it's Giga, whether it's Fernandez, guys that are nowhere near it, nowhere near the required level. I know Fernandez gets the winner, but in order to play a back 3 with these players in it and Dujon Sterling, he then sacrifices Raskin from midfield. So you're taking your best player out of your starting 11 to put in one of your worst ones. Yeah. And that doesn't make any sense to me. And I thought Rangers struggled because of that. Certainly that was a contributory factor to another really poor performance. They were really lucky that Hibs didn't get in front in the game. I thought Hibs were the dominant side in the first half. How Rangers come off the pitch 1-0 up at half time, I'm still not quite sure. And it was a real turgid performance. Once again, Chermiti looks nowhere near it. And Andy was right to single out Mikey Moore. But again, that if you were a Rangers fan looking at that should be terrifying you a little bit. The only one player in your team is a teenage kid, school kid, that's basically on loan from Spurs, and he's not going to be here for the long haul. So where is this team going under Danny Rowe? Andy might be right. It might be about to stumble right into a title race. But I look at what Rangers are working with right now. I look at that starting 11. I look at the manager, and I think if I was Hearts, I'm rubbing my hands at the prospect of welcoming that team to Tynecastle right now. As I'm pretty sure Derek McInnes will be. This gives him another opportunity for another big statement win. And he's racking them up this season, isn't he? By the way, a wee bit of breaking news.
Go for it.
Hamilton Academicals has today received a 9-point deduction following an SPFL disciplinary tribunal. SPFL rules require all member clubs to hold a bronze level Scottish FA club licence at 31 of March. The club was given multiple extensions to this date to comply, but has failed to do so, which led to the disciplinary proceedings. It's just more nightmarish news for Hamilton, isn't it? It's that club's in a real difficult position right now, a real mess.
That'll drop them down to looking at the League One standings, I think third bottom on 13 points. Cove Rangers on 10, Celtic Hearts on 9. So pretty brutal for Hamilton and their fans. Just to sign off though on Rangers, Keith. I've lost it now, but a couple of Hearts. There you go. McKenna it says Hearts are back scoring goals. Who is going to score 2 against Hearts? It's a home win for me. I know you obviously just said you'd be astonished if Rangers won at Tynecastle. Do you think it will be a Hearts victory or a draw?
I would fancy Hearts quite strongly for that. Daniel, listen, they've been the best side in the country.
Oh, definitely.
Nobody should be surprised that I'm saying I would fancy Hearts to beat Rangers at home. Maybe in more ordinary times that might seem like a bit of a leap of faith or whatever, but it's not.
Hearts, I completely agree.
Hearts are consistently, and yes, they've had a little bit of a wobble. They've got back in the bike. Took 6 points from the games against Celtic and Falkirk. Massively important given the context of the whole season. They're going into this with their tails up. They've got better players than Rangers in most positions, I would say, and they've got a manager that I would back to find a way of dealing with whatever Danny Rowe can come up with, which on last night's evidence isn't a lot in any case.
Rangers Easy OK says, brilliant, Keith, that's us getting 3 points then. Your predictions have been honking. So
they have been bad.
Well said, Rangers Easy OK. I think just before we finish, Keith, we can see the league table, just how it stands after that last night. And I just wanted to make the point, I mean, I don't like kind of sticking the boot in, but what does it say for like Hibs and Aberdeen? This is one of the worst Rangers and Celtic teams in modern history. And Hibs, again, as you say last night, can he go there and even get a draw? They're now 5 points behind Rangers.
Yeah, and they actually, that's what I'm saying, they actually played okay, particularly in the first half, I thought. But there's a mental block. I don't know what it is with Hibs and Rangers, but they can't score against them. They'd one cleared off the line last night by Sterling. Sterling, by the way, is one that Rangers fans will be delighted to see back because he's a proper player. If his body doesn't let him down, if he can stay fit, he'll be a real addition to that team. Did
you hear, Keith, on the radio, Billy Dodds letting slip how he was injured?
No.
He mentioned on BBC radio last night, I'm sure fans will have seen it, on Twitter, he said that he actually stepped on a sprinkler and done his Achilles. That's what happened to him.
And during the match, though, that was away to Athletic Bilbao.
Oh, was it during the match?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That's how. Remember, he came off in that game, the second leg of that tie.
Right, okay. I just never heard that.
But that was it. It was sorry, I knew that. Yeah, sprinkler.
I thought it was breaking news. But he'll be crucial coming back for Rangers.
He's a big addition, and he's so much better than other players that they've got in a number of positions, whether it's across the back four or even in the middle of the pitch. He could be a massive contributor for Rangers if he stays fit. He's obviously not had his problems to seek that way, but he's a proper player. He's a real good player for Rangers, and he will improve them. But again, I just come back to it. I don't understand the wisdom of taking Nico Raskin out of the team to accommodate 3 centre halves.
Well, a couple of people got in touch, Keith, saying that Danny Rowe said after the game that he was injured. Rangers is okay. Raskin was injured, Keith. He didn't train all weekend. Rowe said after the match.
He wasn't that injured because he came off the bench in the second half.
Now. Exactly, yeah. I know. You'd imagine that for this game at Tynecastle, Raskin, if he's even approaching fit, has got to start.
Oh, he's got to, yeah.
And Miovski, if he's fit as well.
Yeah, I think Miovski, they were saying it was more of an impact injury. So not a muscle issue, which you would think would give him a real fighting chance to be fit for Tynecastle. Rangers are misfiring so badly right now at the top end of the pitch. They need all the help they can get. If Majowski is playing himself into a bit of form, then that would be a big plus for Rangers, definitely. You'd need Sterling back fully fit, and he looks as if he's getting there. You need Raskin dominating the middle of the pitch. You need the schoolboy from Spurs to be the most creative player that they've got. I mean, I look at the other options now, and they're just falling by the wayside, didn't they? Antman came in. There was a buzz of excitement about what he might do. He's so far off it, it's frightening. Gassama came in. There was a lot of excitement about him over the first 2-3 weeks. I mean, he actually scored one last night. It was chopped off for offside. But there's been few signs of him doing anything like that in recent weeks. He's gone right off it. So these are the guys that were meant to bring a bit of creativity in the wider areas for Rangers. It's just not there.
Yeah.
And for all those reasons and more, I look at Hearts. I look at the team that Derek McInnes has put together. I look at the options that they've got. I look at the balance that the side's got, and that's why I can only really see one winner for that game.
It's still a couple of days away and a couple of more Hotline lives away. But I think for tonight, that brings to the end of Tuesday Night Show. Thanks as always for all the comments. Massively appreciated as ever. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. ahead of Dundee United versus Celtic. There's only one game, Keith, so no need for a pyjama special, I don't think.
No pyjama party tomorrow, Dan.
No pyjama party, no. We'll do it beforehand. And we hope everyone watching can join us then. Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Daniel.
Thank you very much for watching at home. Hope to see you tomorrow. Cheers.